Before we get going into your Hockey IQ podcast episode, I want to thank our sponsor, Rapid Shot. Rapid Shot is the smart shooting lane. It's like a batting cage for hockey players. Very cool. Tracks your shot in three ways: accuracy, shot speed, and reaction time. Easy to use. Actually, I used it when I played and was growing up. Very easy. Simply scan your phone in, select your settings, and start shooting. You can see your stats on the app and online. You can check them out at rapidshot.com. Great small business. I actually grew up with one of the owner's sons and have played with all the family members by now, just in local pickups here in Ohio. Very cool local business. Awesome product. I love it. I know quite a few NHLers have them in their homes. A lot of D1 programs have it at their rinks. So you have to check this out. Rapidshot.com. Check it out. Rapid Shot, thank you so much for sponsoring our podcast. On this episode of the Hockey IQ podcast, we bring on Andrew Brewer. Andrew is a video coach currently with the Florida Panthers, but in his past life, and something we can dig into a little bit deeper, was his experience with hockey at the highest levels, the Olympics. He worked with Team Canada for World Junior Cups, World Cups, Team Canada Olympic preparations, and shared a lot of great ideas, a lot of ways to think about the game in a better light, whether that be from being a hockey parent to how to watch film or what makes the elite, and even dove into his university studies and the power of incentives. So this is a really great episode for a lot of people. So very excited to share it with you. Let's do it. Welcome to Hockey IQ podcast, Andrew Brewer. You've got quite the background: Hockey Canada, Leafs, now with Florida. Also just started a new business here, 200 Foot Coaching. So excited to have you on.
Thanks for having me, Greg. I look forward to talking today, and hopefully I'll be able to learn something from you.
Yeah, let's dive in. Maybe a quick 30-second background of where you were and where you've come today, and kind of what you're going to be planning here in the future.
Perfect. So my background, I played hockey growing up, and I played AAA high school hockey. Wasn't good enough to make anything of it. I went to university, and when I was in university, I was taking a business degree. Made a video for a class project. From that video, it got shown to the athletics department and shown to the head coach of the hockey team, and he invited me to be the video coach for the UNB hockey team. They'd never had a video coach before, so that I got my first opportunity in hockey out of a video for class business class project. That led to me being the video coach for UNB, which led to me being the assistant coach, which led to me being on the national steering committee, which led to me coaching youth teams there. So I got a ton of experience. Worked at the University of Brunswick. We were lucky enough to win 2 Canadian university championships over 3 years, in 2009, 2011. Then, oddly enough, I was in Florida on vacation with my wife, and she said, "You should work in the NHL." I said, "Well, I'm not going to be able to work in the NHL because, I'm working Canadian university hockey." So I literally Googled, how do you become a video coach in the NHL? And it popped up that Hockey Canada was hiring a video coach at the time, or manage your national team's videos. So I applied. I was lucky enough to beat out about 300 other applicants and get to be the video coach for Team Canada for 3 years. So I worked there from 2011 to 2014. Went to 3 World Junior Championships, 4 World Championships, a World Cup, the 2014 Olympics. Working in the 2014 Olympics, get to know Mike Babcock well. After the Olympics, he brought me on to Detroit as an assistant coach with the Red Wings in 14-15. Then when he went to Toronto in 2015, I joined him there, and spent 5 years with the Toronto Maple Leafs as an assistant coach. Lived there for 5 years. Now, this past fall, I joined the Florida Panthers as a video coach, and now I'm living in South Florida, working with the Florida Panthers as a video coach. And recently, I've just started a business, 200 Foot Coaching, and the idea is to take the lessons that I've learned working with 25 different NHL head coaches, 6 of the top 10 in NHL wins, and try and help minor hockey associations and coaches across North America and the world, and providing affordable training for minor hockey coaches. So trying to help coaches develop and be able to take that next step.
Yeah, let's take it rewind back to Hockey Canada. I'm assuming those were some interesting experiences that you had going overseas, working with a bunch of different players, and obviously with like the World Juniors, those kids come together for a very short period of time. So that's got to pose their own challenges. So maybe give us some more background into working with Hockey Canada. Seems like a good place to start.
Yeah, it was a great experience, and I'm thankful for that opportunity because coming from Atlantic, Canada, I obviously had a limited network in hockey, but I'd go to Hockey Canada and I'd get to work. My two major events a year would be a World Juniors and a World Championship. So each year I'd be able to work these two different events with multiple head coaches and get to meet all these different people. So, I'd get to be around all these great hockey people on a regular basis and just get to be in the same room as them and listen to them and learn from them. So it was just an amazing opportunity to get to be around all these different top athletes, coaches, managers, and be able to learn from them on a regular basis. So, I'd go to a World Junior Championship. Don Hay, my first World Juniors was Don Hay, was a head coach. Andre Tournier was one of the assistant coaches. He's now obviously the head coach in Arizona. Don Hay might be the winningest coach in the WHL. He's coached there forever. Legendary Western League coach. Got to know Kelly McCrimmon, who obviously is now in Vegas. And so that's all for my first international event. So the World Juniors are special, especially in Canada. My first year was in Edmonton, Calgary. Like you said, it's the most probably exciting hockey. It's so adrenaline filled. It's full of mistakes. It's full of emotion. So it was a pretty cool experience to get to be a part of that group. And it's just so different from the World Championship, just the pace of it. The World Championship is 8 games. The World Juniors is only 4 games. So it's just a completely different pace and a completely different event. The World Juniors is such a adrenaline, fast pace, everything on the line, and the World Championship is such a build up to the crossovers, the quarterfinal, semifinal, final. So and just the maturity of dealing with an NHL player versus dealing with, like you said, a 16-year-old Nathan McKinnon or Jonathan Drouin, or even a Connor McDavid in 2014 when he played for Canada at that age. So it's just a completely different experience getting to be around all those different players. But like you said, it's a guys coming together and trying to be a team, and it's a whole different thing. And that's where I'm trying to take that back to minor hockey tournaments, because it's different planning for a whole season and planning for a 2-week tournament like the Olympics. So how do you get all the planning done beforehand, and how do you try and build up your schedule and build up your preparation for one pinnacle moment like an Olympic gold medal game?
So how do you prepare for, a world championship, a world junior championship, the Olympic games? Like what goes into that? Are you coming already with video of like, here's how we're going to play, and you throw that up on the screen and it runs on the same piece? How do you do the team building? I'm curious what all came into that for you guys.
I'd say the gold medal or the gold standard of preparation would have been the 2014 Olympics. That was literally, 2 years in the making and preparing for that event. And I'd say no detail was left unturned on that event. So for that event, we hired Ralph Kruger. When I was with Hockey Canada, we hired Ralph Kruger, who was still in Europe at the time. And he was our basically international liaison. He went and scouted all of the European team. So we knew exactly how each European team would play: Sweden, Latvia, Finland. We knew their head coaches. We knew their national identity. We knew what their team structure was. I started working with 2012 during the lockout with Mike Babcock, preparing our team systems, how we want to play, creating a systems package, creating systems video of our players doing what we wanted them to do. So then that led to a summer camp in 2013. That was the famous Canadian ball hockey game where we taught our systems. We went on an international ice. We got all of our players together to try and get to know each other on and off the ice, what our expectations were, what to expect when they got over to Sochi, because obviously Sochi is a different experience than being in downtown Vancouver, which they just had in 2010. So that entire camp was 3-4 days about preparing them to what to expect. So when they got off the plane in Sochi, they already had an idea. They had a systems package, which exactly was how we were going to play. We knew exactly a pre-scud of who our first opponent was, how they were going to play, how we were going to utilize their lines, what the living accommodations were going to look like, what they were going to have when they arrived. So it was just making sure that every single detail was looked after, so there were no surprises, which I think led to probably the most dominant performance of any Canadian team of all time. 3 goals allowed in 6 games. I think it was something like 70% possession or Corsi. So it was just a completely dominant event, and just the level of planning. The TJ Oshie shootout, everyone remembers, he took the 6 shots in the shootout. We had all that prepared on an iPad. We knew exactly what his 3 moves were, how he comes in the same way each time. And then he has 3 options. He goes 5-hole blocker, glove. We had that all prepared on an iPad. So if our goalies wanted to look at it, they could actually see exactly that TJ Oshie was the top American shooter. This is all of his attempts in the NHL, and this is the 3 locations that he shot. So we kind of knew as much as possible before it was going to happen. And you try and do that day to day in the NHL, but you just can't go to that level of detail because you don't have that time. It's more in that sense like preparing for a football game, because they spend 2-3 weeks preparing for Sunday. The Olympics, we literally spent 2 years preparing for a 2-week event in February 2014.
Pretty impactful event. And yeah, that was absolutely dominating. I'm curious of how you guys set the expectations for each line. I'm assuming buy-in was pretty easy. Like, everyone wants to play for Canada and willing to do anything for that. But, how did you go about saying, here's what I need from your line, and even just like knowing what kind of roster you're building, how you wanted to build the team structure around the assets that Canada has?
Well, that was when Canada was really going through a transition, in that we weren't taking checkers to international tournaments anymore. We weren't taking 4th line guys to play on the 4th line. We were taking 1st line guys from NHL teams that were going to play on our 4th line. So we had an expectation and an identity that this is how we're going to play. It doesn't matter whether you're Sidney Crosby and Patrice Bergeron and Kunitz, or if you're, on our 4th line, which I think at the time was like Tavares and Martin St. Louis and so on. So we had the same expectation for everybody. We took the best players available. That was the decision by Steve Yzerman. And that's one thing that I think Mike Babcock does exceptional, is that he treats everybody the exact same, whether it's me, whether it's, Steve Yzerman, whether it's Sidney Crosby, whether it's the equipment guy. He has the same expectation and intensity with all of us. So there's an incredible level of fairness with it all. So, just the expectation was that, everyone was going to do what was needed of them. We were going to leave no detail unturned. And whether you're on the 1st line or 4th line, I couldn't even tell you what the 1st line was, just in the sense that we almost went minor hockey and, rolled 4 lines out and were able to just play anyone because of the depth of the team and the way that everybody played. I know that we never at all got into line matching and got into shutdowns. So different events you play differently, but in that specific event, we just literally minor hockey doored it and roll guys out and made sure that everybody was playing to the best of their ability in the way that we wanted to play.
That's awesome. I love that. Just roll 4 lines. Don't worry about line matching. Your team's got the best preparation possible. So that's cool. And then how do you compare that with a World Junior? Like, you probably, especially with how kids develop at different levels, late bloomers, you can't do 2 years in advance for World Juniors. Like, that's got to be quite a different experience.
Exactly. And you never really know who's going to be on the opposition team. So you just try and build up as much of an idea of how each country plays. And then, as it's going on, you're pre-scouting every pre-tournament game, you're pre-scouting every game that's going on through the tournament, trying to get the best idea. But with the World Juniors, it's all about trying to get your team to play the best and play the way that you want to play. Because again, with Canada, if you play how you want to play, it doesn't overly matter how the rest of the teams are going to play in a lot of ways, because you should be the best when it comes to depth. A lot of times they have the best players, they have the best options to put on the ice. So with that event, it's really about determining how you're going to play and getting your players to be able to play the way that you want to play well, which is much harder at that level. Getting kids to calm down to a certain extent and be able to play the system we want to play. and think and to stay structured. So I'd say that coaching the World Juniors, I think overall is way more challenging than coaching the World Championships, just from the level of maturity. And not saying that they're immature, like they make bad decisions, but they're just not able to process information. And when you get back to hockey IQ, they're not able to process that information as quickly and take instructions quite as well as guys who are more experienced.
So what kind of information are you presenting, and how do you present it differently based on exactly that? Like, pros have been around this, they've seen many things, and they can really draw on a lot of background knowledge, and younger guys just haven't had that. So I'm curious of how you present it differently, or do you just take the same stuff and simplify it further? Do you give more why so the current generation really digs into it? I'm curious what that's like.
Yeah, so like I would use an example of a neutral zone forecheck. So you play a team like Finland, who constantly has a very passive 1-2-2 that really looks like a 1-4 neutral zone forecheck, and it's just trying to get your players to understand how they're going to play, why they're trying to play like that, and how we need to play to be able to beat it. Like with the 2016 Men's World Championship team, we basically told them, hey, they're going to do a passive 1-4. They stand 4 guys across the blue line. We need to come back, build speed, dump the puck in, and attack with speed that way, because possession entries just don't work when they have 5 guys standing across the line. But and it wasn't a spite on our players, but they didn't believe us to a certain extent, and we tried to carry the puck in too much. We never ended up being able to get into the offensive zone. But when we played them again in the gold medal game, our players, not that they didn't believe the coaches, but they'd gone through that experience themselves. They were able to adjust, and they knew what to expect now. And now they were able to adjust the game plan, and they felt more comfortable doing kind of what the game plan was. So it's trying to convince them as early as possible to follow what we're trying to get across and why we're trying to get it across. And they don't do it maliciously. But they've done something like a Connor McDavid carries a puck into the zone his entire life, and he does it because it works. So trying to convince him to in this situation he's going to need to chip the puck to another guy with speed, it just takes some convincing. So obviously we didn't do a good enough job convincing them before the regulation game. So luckily by the time it came to the gold medal game, we were lucky enough to show them how we need to play, and they executed at an amazing level, and we're able to win the gold medal.
So do you have all of your gold medals stacked up on your wall, or where do you keep them?
No, it's funny. So I have 5 5 rings, sorry, 2 Canadian University, an Olympic, a World Cup, and a World Championship. And I'm not 100% sure. I have them hidden somewhere in my house, but I could not even tell you right now where I have them hidden. I'd have to probably ask my wife. She'd probably have a better idea. But I do have pictures of the 3, especially the 3 international events, and signed jerseys from those events. So if you win, you get up on the wall. If you don't, I've got a whole pile of team pictures from teams I've been on that didn't achieve the ultimate goal in a closet. So no, it's been pretty cool. The Olympic ring was a pretty amazing thing to get. It's not a Stanley Cup ring, but it's still, I'm 2/3 of the way to the triple gold. So I'd love to someday to be able to finish that off.
Yeah, that'd be great. Obviously, you don't win unless you have some seriously good, talented players and staff members. So from that, I'm wondering, what are maybe some epiphanies you've had through your coaching journey, and going through all of this? What are some major items that, like, wow, this is unbelievable?
I'd say one thing is coaches sometimes always get knocked. Oh, this guy is an idiot. He doesn't do this. This guy is and it happens in more big markets, whether it's Toronto or Montreal. He didn't do this or he didn't do this. No coaches are trying to lose. They never bench a player. I've never been around a coach that has benched a player because he doesn't like someone. He's benching someone because he genuinely believes that doing what he's doing gives him the best chance to win. And I've been around, like I said, 25 different NHL head coaches. So I think sometimes coaches don't get realized that they're doing what they truly believe in, and they're doing what they believe is best. What that is may actually not be what's best. we all make mistakes. Everyone has biases and makes mistakes in life. But coaches are still incentivized to try and do what's best. So whether that was Randy Carlaw, whether that's Mike Babcock, whether that's Sheldon Keefe in Toronto, they all wanted the same thing. They want to have the parade down Bay Street. They want to win the Stanley Cup and bring it back for the Toronto Maple Leafs. They all approach things differently. But they all did what they believed was going to help the team win and what they needed to do to help the team win based on their life experiences and personal beliefs. So I'd say that's one thing is I've yet to meet a coach that, is benching a player or not playing someone just because they don't like them or because of this or that. Like, and hey, sometimes coaches, I work with coaches who do overlook things like, being late for practice or being this or that, not having good personal appearance. Sometimes they overemphasize things that maybe they shouldn't overemphasize. But at the end of the day, if they think that you're going to help them win a championship, they're going to give you the opportunity to play. So the biggest thing is I'd say to, kids and, junior hockey players all over is if you got cut, it's not because the coach didn't like you. It's because the coach truly believes that what he's doing is going to give them the best chance to win. Because at the end of the day, the coach is incentivized to win, especially at the higher level. He's incentivized to have the best team possible. He's incentivized to win. So what he's doing is what he truly believes in. He's not going to start cutting kids, the best kids, just to, spite you and cost him his job and his livelihood. So I'd say coaches in general are trying their best and have the best intentions, although it may not always work out like they intend.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, incentives are much more powerful than people realize, and they're the main driver of what happens. So I agree. You never bench someone or like curb ice time if you don't like them. You want to treat everyone fairly.
I really agree with that. One thing I've actually been interested in is I took economics and behavioral economics after the fact. I just find it really interesting because at the end of the day, people respond to incentives. And that's one thing I in my coaching and even in my hockey journey, I'm trying to always find the best way to incentivize players and to incentivize people to do what you want them to do. And that's always the issue. Guys going into a contract year, they get more points in a new contract year. They may try harder because of going into a contract year. What's the incentive? How do you create incentives? How do you modify incentives? And that's where I find the behavioral economics side just massively interesting. I got into Freakonomics back when it first came out, however long ago, and I've read tons of Richard Thaler books, tons of books on the subject, Amos Tversky. So I find it really interesting. I wish I could bring it more to hockey, but I just haven't found a way to get that in yet.
Yeah, as a man who also studied economics at college, I fully agree with you that the power of incentives is absolutely powerful. So I'm curious, maybe some ways that you've been able to see, whether it be yourself or coaches you've worked with, incentivize effectively.
It sounds dumb, but one of the an 82 game season in the NHL is monotonous, which you hate to say it for fans because every game is important, every 2 points matters. But at the end of the day, an 82 game season for players is no different than a guy going to work Monday to Friday. It is more exciting. There is more to it, but it's how do you bring that day-to-day excitement? So something like going in between the first and the second period of a 0-0 game and say, hey, let's get a win tonight. We have a win tonight. Tomorrow's a day off. It's amazing how that little incentive will drive that, that 10% extra performance from your team. Just little rewards or little, it's tough in the NHL because there's so many CBA rules and restrictions around that, what you can provide to your team and what you can do. But just that little incentive is, it's why the KHL does cash, after a win, they'll give you cash, $10,000 for getting the game-winning goal in overtime. It's just those little incentives that it's amazing how far they go. Like I said, just the offer of a day off after in the middle of a tie game, you tell that to a captain. He spreads it to the players, and it's amazing how far that will go with your players. So just anything like that, anything you can try and do that you're allowed to do to sweeten the pot for them and to break up the monotony. Maybe tomorrow we're going to go golfing instead of practicing. Just something like that. It's amazing how that can boost performance 5-10% in the in the overall of an 82 game season.
Yeah, I would like to mention that works very well with the pros. Would not incentivize your kid to not pass the puck and give them $1 for scoring goals. That would be a no.
Exactly. That's where, I've heard of teams that would, especially like good teams, to incentivize for a shutout. So from a team perspective, you try and not allow any goals as a team, or that's where I think if you could ever have like, I know it's not legal in the NHL, but if you could ever have like a team bonus, so, everything should be based off of team wins, team performance versus individual stats, which obviously I know isn't plausible, isn't financially allowed, but that's how you would want to build an incentive structure, is going to be based off of team performance and not individual performance. So with your kids and with your minor hockey team, I'll do it when I'm coaching minor hockey practices. I'll say, hey, we're going to do these next 4 drills. If we do them fast, we do them right. I like the intensity. Then we're going to, instead of doing 20 minutes at the end of drills, we're going to do 20 minutes of fun games, whether that's cross ice games or some kind of even a full ice scrimmage. So using things that they like as incentive goes a long way when it comes to incentivizing players to get more out of practice. So if you're a minor hockey team, you practice 3 times a week. By the 3rd practice, a lot of times it falls off. So how can you get better performance in that? Say, hey, if you guys do well for the next 40 minutes, and the last 20 minutes will be any activity you guys want to do. You want to do a 5-puck shootout for 20 minutes straight? That's what we'll do.
That's wonderful. We used to do Snicker bars for winning the shootout. And if the last person doesn't score in 2 tries, goalie's the winner.
Exactly.
So make it fun. That's awesome. I like that. So you've had a lot of interesting conversations with a bunch of players, coaches. I'm curious, maybe what are some things that have come out of those conversations that are just fascinating, enlightening, whatever they may be? Let us into the room a little bit. Maybe some of those NHL secrets, or McDavid type secrets, or Patty Kane. Well, not Patty Kane. Sorry, he's American.
Yeah.
But maybe some Sidney Crosby moments where you've just been wild and you're like, this is an awesome moment. I wish I had recorded that.
It's just amazing to see the level of detail that some of these guys go through, and the level of detail that they're willing to put into a practice. Like the amount of work that Sidney Crosby puts in on a annual basis to be the best player in the game. Like Connor McDavid doesn't just show up at the rink, work 1 hour, and then he's the best player. He's worked his entire life to get to where he needs to be, and he's done it through multiple sports. He's done it through being the best athlete, the best person possible. One thing I not to sound too positive on them, but players do a ton of amazing stuff off the ice. Austin Matthews was doing hospital visits for years before anyone ever found out. They donate tons and tons of money to charity. Zach Hyman might be one of the best people I've ever been around, just as a complete overall person. Literally writes children's books, blocks shots, kills penalties, like literally does everything as a human. So I don't think sometimes hockey players get enough credit for being as good of people and caring about people within their own cities that they sometimes do. I'd say from an individual basis, just being around some of like these top player skills, like being in the rink or at a practice when Shea Weber rips a slap shot off the glass, or seeing Austin Matthews on a daily basis with his release, being around Connor McDavid and just seeing his speed and like the pace that he does everything at. It's special to be around these elite players with these elite abilities on a regular basis. And you try and learn from them, and you try and see what they do, but you just realize that, like Austin Matthews is an amazing shot, but he's just so special. That's not something that's necessarily transferable to someone else.
And I think it's huge what you said there. It's not just showing up to the rink for an hour, doing the gym for an hour. There's so much preparation that goes beyond that. That's what truly makes the special players. It's pretty much how they outwork everyone. They were given some level of talent, but I feel like they earn it and then some, and how far above and beyond their commitment levels are.
The guys that have been around the longest, whether it's a Jason Spezza, Joe Thornton, like they truly love the game. They watch the game. like they're into the game. They understand it. They know the hands of all the players. They're true hockey nerds in a lot of senses. So that kind of helps with the longevity of some of these guys that have been around forever. Just their level of dedication to the sport and their level of passion for the sport makes, instead of playing till they're 31, they're the guys that can end up playing till they're 40, mid 40s, where they can really extend out their career by just putting the extra work and watching video when they go home. I would get text messages from Spets at 11:30 at night. Hey, I can't find the second period on the cloud. Like, I'm trying to watch my shifts from last night, but there's one missing from the second period. Do you know what's going on? And, so the fact that he's willing to put in that work and, try and get better and try and improve. And I'd say that's, again, it's not like Austin Matthews just goes to practice and shoots. He would always be going out early. He's always working on the shots. He'd, spend a summer entirely working on one-time shots. So he could be able to play the different flank on the power play. So he's willing to put the work in to become that extra special and to take it to the next level. Like, if you remember when he first came in the NHL, he played on his forehand. So he wasn't shooting one-timers on the power play, but they wanted to be able to switch over to him being on his one-time side on the power play and put Mitch on the other side. So he basically spent an entire summer practicing how to shoot one-timers. And now he's got an elite one-timer in the National Hockey League. He went from his first year and scoring like one-timer goal to scoring like 15 of them last year.
Yeah, it's impressive. And same thing with like Spezza, how long he's been able to elongate his career and play at such a high level. I feel like he's like the ultimate fourth liner nowadays, and he's getting league minimum, but it's quite amazing. I'm curious from that. So you're talking about like Spezza watching videos. I'm assuming you're watching videos and breaking down technique in the summers. Like players will do that, especially, Matthews with his one-timer. How should people go about watching videos, being able to learn from it and truly improve, and utilize all that video and all that work like you've done, and then be able to translate that into actual performance?
Well, I say there's two ways to watch video. There's micro watching video and there's macro watching video. So when you watch video on again, taking back to economics, when you watch it on a macro level, you're going through, you're watching the whole game, you're watching for tendencies throughout an entire game. When you watch video on a micro level, which is what I tend to do more, that's when you're going through specific events. So that's when, if you as a player think that your shot needs work, that's when you need to go through the video. You need to cut out all of your shots over, whether it's a practice, whether it's multiple games, however long it is, and you want to go and watch just that specific instance over and over again to see where you can improve. So an example of that was I've never taken a face off in my life. I was like a slug defenseman, stuck at home, stay at home, whatever you want to call it. But suddenly I'm in charge of face-offs for both the Detroit Red Wings and the Toronto Maple Leafs. I would watch about 300 face-offs per game before every game to try and figure out exactly what the opposition is doing. And all I would do is I'd watch, say we're playing Boston, I'm watching Bergeron take face-offs on the left side against left-handed players. Then I'm watching him take them on the right side against left-handed players. Then I'm watching him take them on the left side against righties, then on the right side against righties. I'm just watching multiple instances of the video over and over again to try and pull out tendencies and try and figure out what he's doing. And that led to us being one of the top three face-off teams in the NHL for my last 2 seasons in Toronto, and we were a dominant face-off team in Detroit as well. So when I watch video and I'm trying to figure out either what a player is doing or what I need to improve on a player or what I need to improve in a situation, I just isolate what I'm looking for and watch that thing over and over and over again, try and get as many items into my sample as possible to try and figure out how I can improve that item. So if you're a minor hockey player, you want to improve your shot, go on the ice, get a GoPro, put on the glass, go and take 100 shots, different types of shots, and then go and watch that over and over again. Maybe when you look that you realize that you're not transferring weight between your feet at all. Maybe your hands aren't in the right place when you actually look at it on video. So if you're trying to fix one specific thing, look at one specific thing. If you're trying to become a better player overall, that's when you can go and watch your shifts. They'll say, okay, well, I don't like my positioning. In general, I don't like my positioning when I'm out on the ice. In general, I'm too far away from the puck when when I don't have the puck. I'm never in a position to get open. That's when you can watch it on a macro level. So just decide what you're trying to fix, whether it's macro or micro item, and then approach it how you need to approach it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Like personally for me, I love to like it was a breakthrough when I stopped actually watching the puck. I mean, at that point, you're starting to go away from fan and truly into a student of the game itself. I think that's an important piece to add there as well. But no, I love that idea of being able, like, hey, you want to improve your shot, tape yourself, whether it be on ice, off ice, and see what you look like. Because I remember when I saw myself for the first time, I was like, oh my God, am I terrible?
Exactly, and that's where yeah, we do video at the NHL. We're lucky, I can access any event kind of throughout a game. But video, I think in the next 5 years especially, is going to be more of a thing in minor hockey. Almost all rinks have either live barn or some type of live barn where you can actually go through and download videos of the game. So now suddenly all games are being recorded, all minor hockey games are being recorded. So now we're getting access to all this types of video. I think the next step will be AI, what Sportlogic has done with the NHL level. I think if anyone's ever able to do it with kind of the live barn level where you can isolate shifts or isolate events, in a minor hockey game, I think that'll take it to a next level because that's where, if you go and play in a rink and suddenly you're able to go in and buy your shifts from that game, for $10, be able to isolate just your shifts in a game, that's a massive benefit for you as a player. So I think where, we've seen video improve the game from 1995 to 2015. I think video is going to really take a step in minor hockey in the next 10 years where we're getting more and more cameras into rinks and video is becoming more and more available and computers are so affordable. Minor hockey associations can really invest in it now.
Yeah, and you're a hockey parent as well. So I'm curious how you approach your own kids. Are you more of the hands off, or you like be there if they want it, but maybe not over involved? Or do you say here, and you really want to create that bond with your kid and get involved heavily and like show them video? Or what's that like for you? Because I know you've got multiple.
Yeah, so I have three boys. My oldest is 10. He's a goaltender, so that's been a whole new investment and something different for me. My middle son is 7, and my youngest son is 5. So my oldest son played AA hockey in the GTA. Now he's playing hockey in Florida. My 7-year-old is now playing travel hockey in Florida. He's a player. My 5-year-old is doing learn to skate. So I've kind of been through the whole ringer in minor hockey, GTA, OMHA. I've been involved in all these different levels of minor hockey. So the main thing I'd say is anyone involved in hockey is don't push what you love on them. Let them develop the love for it themselves. So none of our boys, we'd sign up, for anything more than basically learn to skate. We wanted them to come to us and say, hey, Dad, I want to be able to be on the ice more. Hey, Dad, I want to do this. So I want them to develop the love themselves and not be, forced to go 4 times a week on the ice because I want them to be good at hockey. I want them to, want to play hockey. So I think that's worked, especially with my 2 oldest boys now have an absolute love and passion for the game. So from that perspective, I try not to get too detailed with them. I try and mix being a dad and being a hockey coach. But for my oldest son, I try and focus. He's a goalie. I try and focus on certain things, making sure that he's getting back to his feet. He's a bigger goalie, so he's got to try and get back to his feet more to be able to get across to his position. I want him to get to the top of the crease as much as possible and not sink back in his net. And I wanted to, focus on his stance a little bit more. So I try and pick certain things and I'll focus on just those certain things. So same as my middle son, he's a player, I'm focusing on how he holds his stick and trying to get him to bend his knees a little bit more. So a lot of the other stuff I'll let his coaches deal with, but I'm just trying to, instill little things that are obviously massively important for them at the ages that they're at and, try and help them that way. So I've also started working with minor hockey associations. I'm working with the Oakville Rangers as the director of coach development with them. So I'm trying to help minor hockey coaches follow both the Hockey Canada Canadian pathway and the USA Hockey development plan to try and make sure that we're developing players and youth hockey players in the right way. So we A, develop a passion for the game and B, help develop them. Because at the end of the day, the job of a minor hockey coach isn't to win a single game or isn't to win a championship. It's to A, have as many people love hockey and stay involved in hockey as long as possible, and B, develop them to be the best players on the ice and be the best people off the ice.
And I think that last part is the most key. Like you want to develop that passion and that love. And you've obviously done that with your boys. And I think a lot that goes into it is like they want to get better. Like how much fun is that when like you're one of the better players out there? Like don't rush your kids too fast. just enjoy where you're at, enjoy playing. You know, if you want to pick a few items that are key items that you think would help them, and if they're into that, like you're just breeding confidence, which is really cool. So I love what you're doing there. And we're definitely coming up here on almost an hour. So want to be cognizant of the time here, but and anything that we didn't hit that you think would be super important, just for maybe a fun story, whether it be with Hockey Canada or the Leafs that people would enjoy, or just some words of wisdom to youth players and parents as they're driving to the rink.
I'd say just a fun story might be on the ball hockey game in 2013. So before the 2010 Olympics in Vancouver, they had a camp in the summer of 2009 in Calgary where basically the top 60 Canadian players went. They practiced, they taught their systems, they taught them how they wanted to play, and then they scrimmaged. So they want to do the same thing in 2013 leading up to the 2014 Olympics. But because of insurance, IIHF was no longer going to cover the insurance for those ice sessions. And the insurance, because of if you take the top 60 Canadian players, their contracts are like $500 million of contracts. So the insurance was like $2 million an hour to go on the ice. So we weren't able to go on the ice and have on ice sessions. So Mike Babcock called me one day and he's like, "Hey, are we going to be able to go on the ice?" I said, "No, it doesn't sound like we're going to be able to." He goes, "Well, how are we going to teach our players how we want them to play?" He goes, "Could we do like a walkthrough, like a football walkthrough? Go to like a tennis court or something and do like a walkthrough?" I said, "Well, why don't we just do it on the, right on the rink versus doing it on the tennis court?" He goes, "That's a great idea. That's exactly what we're going to do." I'm like, "Oh crap. Like what did I, I'm the video guy. What did I just commit to?" So it ended up being probably the best teaching opportunity I've ever been around. So basically what we did is we covered the ice in our international size, Olympic size ice surface in Hockey Canada, where the Women's Worlds were held not too long ago. Basically on the same rink that they played on. We covered the ice with a fiberglass surface like you put down for a concert. We actually got tape. We taped out all the red line, blue line, where the circles are, where the creases are, and everything like that. And we held a ball hockey game, essentially. So what the players would do is they'd come into the dressing room. They'd say, "This is what our forecheck is going to look like. This is a diagram of what the forecheck is going to be." Then they'd go into the video theater. The same slide would be on the screen. The coach would explain the slide. This is how we want to forecheck. This is how, and then we'd show 3 clips of them playing in the NHL, forechecking how we want to play. Then they'd grab their stuff. They'd go on the surface and then they'd do a drill. This is how we're going to forecheck. This is where we want you to stand. And we would do a drill and then they'd come back and kind of redo the loop. This is how we're going to play in the D zone. This is where you're going to stand in the D zone. This is how we're going to switch sides in the D zone. They'd see the slide, watch the video, and then go out and do the drill. So one thing, you talk about the level of preparation that NHL coaches are doing. So none of them had ever run a ball hockey practice before. It was Ken Hitchcock, Mike Babcock, Claude Julien, Lindy Ruff, like thousands of NHL games, but no one's ever run a ball hockey practice. So the day before, or a couple days before the NHL players showed up, we took the University of Calgary guys to University of Calgary hockey team to a minor hockey rink and did the drills that we were planning on doing day one. But what we realized is that you can't actually do a full ice drill in ball hockey because it's so much of a difference in running 200 feet than skating 200 feet. So these guys were absolutely gassed and they had a keg party the night before. So they were completely killed by, running 200 feet up and down the ice. So we had to completely change our practice plan because, the drills that we would do on the ice weren't going to work off the ice. So, because we did that level of preparation, we were able to make sure that, Sidney Crosby wasn't running, 14 miles in a practice. So that level of detail was pretty incredible. And, it was actually even cool. The best player, one of our NHL players, couldn't show up, because of a family emergency. So they took the best University of Calgary player and let him basically play on Sidney Crosby's line in the ball hockey session. So we'd have an even number of players on all of our lines. So it was a pretty cool experience. I'd say it was the best teaching I've ever been around. Whenever you put players on the ice, their competitiveness comes out. They try and do things fast and try and do things competitively and not necessarily focus on learning. So by doing ball hockey, we really focused on, we weren't going to cut anyone based on them not being good in ball hockey. So we were able to provide the best learning experience to really teach our systems exactly how we want to play and do it at a pace which is best for teaching and not necessarily based on evaluation. we let the evaluation happen during the NHL season.
That's a pretty amazing story there, and that's so cool. You got to be there and experience all of those players, and what an experience for that kid being on Crosby's line.
Yeah, it's actually oddly enough, I even have sorry to see, but I've got the ball hockey ball signed by all the coaches. That was kind of my memorabilia from the event. Like I was going through a couple of weeks before, like because we realized we have pucks at Hockey Canada, but we don't have orange ball hockey balls. So what are we going to do there? So I was going to like Pro Hockey Life and Canadian Tire and all these sports stores trying to find like ball hockey balls that weren't like too hard. So if a guy got hit in the shin, wouldn't like break his shin and all this stuff. So just stuff I never thought I'd have to think of. But yeah, the guy that I got to think of the guy's name, yeah, pretty cool. He literally got to sit by Sidney Crosby in the dressing room, got to play on his line for the drills because he basically showed up, worked hard, and got a spot on the ball hockey roster with top NHL players.
Yeah, that's absolutely fascinating. But no, that's awesome. Well, Andrew, thank you so much for your time. This was a lot of good stories, a lot of good talking pieces and things to take away. And I'm glad you found your way to America, and more importantly, to some warm weather. It had to be some long years up there in Canada.
Exactly. Yeah. The only thing I miss is Tim Hortons up in northern U.S. and Canada, but I'll take the warm weather any day.
Yeah, you're always welcome to come visit Columbus here. Wendy's and Timmy's were the same or had the same ownership for a few years. So we got plenty of those around.
Perfect. Look forward to it.
Awesome. Thank you, Andrew. Really appreciate it. Take care.
Thanks, Greg.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that episode. I know I did. So before we let you go, though, we'd like to remind you to please like our podcast, subscribe to it, give us a follow, and share this with all the hockey people in your life. We really appreciate growing this community, this podcast. Remember, we also have a newsletter, the Hockey IQ newsletter as well. Really excited to continue to grow this. So please help us grow this further by liking, subscribing, following, and sharing with everyone. So appreciate you all. Take care.
That concludes this week's episode. Thanks for joining us here at Hockey IQ. If you haven't already, take a quick moment to hit that subscribe button, give us a thumbs up, and drop a review. If you want to be a great teammate, even recommend us to a friend. You can follow us at Hockey's Arsenal on Twitter and Instagram. Check out the website, hockeysarsenal.com, where you can subscribe to the weekly newsletter. You won't regret it. Catch your buttes here next week for a brand new episode.